Two things kind of come to mind to me when I think about these Madison moments. And the first is taking the initiative. I think that's one of the things that always strikes me about Madison in this critical period after the American Revolution. Articles of Confederation become ratified, and we see that things aren't going so well. Nobody asks James Madison to conduct this research that he begins here at Montpelier. Nobody's paying him to conduct this research. So he truly takes the initiative, and I think that's something that we need to acknowledge about Madison's character, especially in this very crucial moment in United States history. A crucial moment that I think we can say in Madison's lifetime is that he returns to his father's plantation, goes up to the second floor of the mansion, and he begins to study. So I think that initiative is truly a Madison moment, because he steps into this situation and conducts what might be argued as one of the most important research projects in United States history. So that initiative is one that comes to mind. The second one, and closely related, is that Madison thoroughly does his research, right? He turns to the sources that are available to him at the time so he can be as best prepared for this situation the country finds itself in. Now, as he begins this research, I don't think he ultimately knows that we're going to end up with the United States Constitution, but he knows that there's a problem. And he wants to wrap his head around what has worked and not worked for countries, for civilizations, throughout world history. Madison begins his research and takes that research to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia.
And all of these delegates came to the Constitutional Convention with their convictions already there. They already thought their ideas were the best ones, and they were going to work as hard as they possibly could to ensure that their ideas were the ones put forth on paper. And Madison enters that room with his research and wanting to hear what the perspectives of the other delegates were. And he thought that the idea of the American experiment being able to move forward was more important than any one person being correct in that room.
I think as we dive into James Madison and his impact, his legacy, his work, one of the things we got to remember is pragmatism. Just getting it done with real people. When we look at the Federalist Papers, we see Madison talking about real people. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, no internal or external controls on government would be necessary. How do you make a government for real people? With all of our humanity, with all of our great qualities and all of our worst qualities. So I can talk about Madison leading and learning from others, and those are important. And I can talk about him embracing complexity and also collaborating with others, and that's important. And I can talk about him advancing the public good, but without the pragmatism, without the ability to compromise, without the ability to make imperfect laws, but a system where people can govern themselves, you don't get anything done.
It's really important that we still study James Madison today. And it's not important because I say it's important or that someone else who's in education says it's important. It's important because studying James Madison is helping each of us as individuals understand not only the attempted functionality of our governmental system, it's understanding our individual roles in being a part of the American experiment. And the reason that Madison is the best example of that is probably because he is not the loudest and most obvious of our founding fathers that we tend to historically study.
Amongst the founding generation, James Madison is largely left in the shadows, especially here in Virginia. Madison falls in the shadows of people like Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. They are typically the ones that, in the larger American historical narrative, they get a lot of the attention. And James Madison, I feel like most of the time, is a footnote. He's known as the father of the Constitution. People know that, and that's about all they know about him. But if we want to take a look at the founding of this country, and our government that, well over 240 years later, we are still operating under, the man that we truly need to understand is James Madison.
And so Madison is not a great philosopher like Baron de Montesquieu or John Locke or Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He's a pragmatic guy. He understands the philosophy, but he wants to get it implemented. He wants it to work.
He did not see himself as a person with all of the answers. He felt compelled to do something with his time. It's coming from a human being who recognizes that they have to try.
This is a man who's an enslaver of over 100 people. And this is a man, I'm going to say, makes a bigger impact on constitutional history than anybody in the world. And how can both those things be true? How can he enslave people legally and also have this amazing, in my view, constitutional impact? And then where does that put us today?
Studying Madison is allowing ourselves to find our own role in the American experiment. And it's a really beautiful thing.